Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
Today we're going to continue talking about lawns. And in case you don't remember, a lawn, of course, is an area of grass around your home or around a building that makes the place look nice. It looks like kind of a pleasant little field. And, of course, mostly they're for show. They don't really have any purpose other than to just look at it. Or, of course, if it's in back of someone's home, it's a great place for kids to play games and stuff like that. But we're talking about moving on from the culture of lawns. We talked about some of the downsides to lawns. They require a lot of water and dry places, and they don't bring about much biodiversity. So maybe we should reconsider the appearance of the outside of our homes.
That's right. So today we're going to move on and continue talking about some alternatives to having a typical lawn that we've gotten used to in the suburbs, at least in Canada, in the US. If you live in the suburbs, you're likely to see a lot of beautiful lawns. So what are some alternatives, different choices? We're going to talk about that. I think these are great suggestions. It's kind of fun to see what people have thought up. Let's go ahead and read through today's article, and then we'll be back.
There are numerous alternatives to a closely cropped carpet-like lawn that are better for the environment and that still keep yards beautiful and practical. Some homeowners elect to put the lawnmower away and let their grass grow, allowing weeds and wildflowers to flourish. This both increases the health of the yard and requires a great deal less maintenance. Ground cover plants like chamomile and clover can also be substituted for grass. These offer the same open space while providing food for pollinators and even stabilizing the nitrogen levels in the soil, which benefits surrounding plants. Other homeowners may prefer exercising their green thumbs. Gardeners can cultivate herb gardens, vegetable plots, or fruit trees, any of which make a household more self-reliant for food production. Planting native wildflowers or perennials is another way to create beautiful home landscapes. These can be arranged in flower beds or other configurations, such as along a garden path. Another enjoyable way to make use of yard space is to have a water feature such as a pond or fountain, which can be populated with local species of plants and animals for a diverse and lively environment. In barren environments with fewer natural water sources, replacing a lawn with other water-loving plants isn't a rational solution. In such places, a technique called Xeriscaping is becoming popular. Xeriscaping aims to moderate or eliminate the need for irrigation, so it's perfect for saving water while still making a gorgeous yard. Xeriscaping employs sturdy, drought-tolerant plant species, especially ones native to the region. It also groups plants that have similar water needs, such as separating thirsty plants from those that require little water. In today's world, we have more options for our yards than just trimmed lawns. Creating sustainable, thoughtful, and biodiverse gardens is one way we can contribute to Earth's good health.
Let's dive in, guys. We're talking about, is it time to move on from our culture of lawns? I, for one, love lawns, so let's see about some of the other possibilities out there that we might want to consider. Now, there are numerous alternatives, it says, to a closely cropped, carpet-like lawn that are better for the environment and that are still keep yards beautiful and practical. When I look at this word cropped, I think of boys' haircuts in the summer when it's really hot and they crop their hair really close to their head. That's a good word for cropped. Or maybe as the women out there listening, maybe you have some cropped pants, cropped jeans. They're just a little shorter. They don't go all the way down to the floor. That's another way to use cropped. Now, alternatives is one of our vocabulary words. When you talk about having alternatives, it just means you have different choices available to you. So it says here there are numerous alternatives. So we have a lot of different choices that we can look at if we want to do something that's better for the environment, but still have beautiful yards and yards that are practical too.
Yep, you've got different choices. You don't have to have that perfect carpet-like lawn if you don't want it. Some homeowners elect to put the lawnmower away and let their grass grow, allowing weeds and wildflowers to flourish. So, yes, that's what some homeowners choose to do. They'll just put the lawnmower away, or they simply won't use the lawnmower, and they'll just let the grass grow, and that will allow weeds and wildflowers to flourish. Now, of course, some people might think that's a bad thing. Weeds, we don't want those. Weeds are terrible plants. We got to get rid of them. They're ugly and they cause problems. And the wildflowers, well, okay, you can have those wildflowers there, but they're not as pretty as like, nice groomed gardens with tulips and roses and stuff like that. Wildflowers, I don't know about that. And then there's going to be bugs flying all over the place. And of course, the neighbors are going to complain.
Now, this both increases the health of the yard and requires a great deal less maintenance. We talked about how if you only have your lawn there and you don't allow weeds to grow, you don't have any biodiversity because you're using a lot of pesticides and chemicals that will help keep your lawns green and free of pests. I wanted to mention some of those pesticides that people have been using cause cancer, and now they're being sued in the United States for causing cancer. Yay! So be careful with some of those pesticides that you're using, guys. Some of those chemicals are really bad for you and your kids. So, yeah, they help, but they also hurt at the same time. And if you don't have any of those pests and weeds, you don't have any biodiversity or a difference or a variety of pests. We don't have to call them pests. We could call them bugs, things like that. Maybe you have snakes. Every once in a while, we'll have a snake in Arizona, but usually not in the grass that people back down south get. People in the southern part of the United States have a lot of scary snakes in their lawns. We don't. But yeah, one of the points they're making, though, is just having more weeds grow there and not using those pesticides just gives you more biodiversity.
Exactly. I'm not sure how people in Taiwan would feel about that because we've got lots of snakes here, some of them poisonous.
Ooh.
So if you let the weeds grow, maybe the snakes would move in. That's something, of course, you guys probably know more about than I do. But
you can't see them if the weeds are really tall,
True,
right?
You don't want to walk in there. There might be snakes in there. And so, yeah, this is one alternative. They might just let the grass grow. The weeds and wildflowers will flourish. And, of course, they will not have to maintain the garden. Ground cover plants like chamomile and clover can also be substituted for grass. So these are some substitutes for grass. Chamomile, which there's a chamomile flower, I believe, that's made into tea. I tried that one time. I didn't really like it.
Oh, really?
Clover is another kind of plant. It's got the little round leaves. Sometimes people look for 4-leaf clovers for good luck. Those might be substituted for grass, and they would make the lawn easier to take care of.
Oh, they're a mess, though. They grow in Arizona, and we hate them.
Okay, fair enough. You'll have to debate that.
Yeah.
And these offer the same open space while providing food for pollinators and even stabilizing the nitrogen levels in the soil, which benefits surrounding plants. So these are some advantages to chamomile and clover. You can still have the open space. You can still walk on the grass or walk on the clover or whatever and have your picnic there. But then they will also provide food for pollinators, which are bees. They basically go to flowers and distribute pollen around so the flowers will grow and trees that bear fruit will be able to do so. And they also stabilize the levels of nitrogen in the soil. Nitrogen, of course, is common in the atmosphere. And if you want to stabilize something, you want to make it so it's not too plentiful and not too low in quantity. You want to stabilize the levels so it's not too high or not too low.
So you're regulating it, you're controlling it, so it's not too much, not too little. Yeah, that's all important. I wanted to mention we were talking about snakes. It reminded me of an idiom we use to describe someone who's awful and who's trying to pretend not to be as bad as they are. We call that person a snake in the grass. Someone who pretends to be your friend but later does something to hurt you. Oh, he's a real snake in the grass. We're kind of used to having snakes in the grass. So if your grass is kind of high, you're not going to see those snakes. Be careful. Moving on to paragraph 2, it says other homeowners may prefer exercising their green thumbs. I've heard people in Taiwan talk about green fingers. Guys, it's just a green thumb. We don't use green fingers unless we're making a joke about someone using the wrong idiom there. We just say, oh, he's a great green thumb. He's got a real green thumb. Not green fingers, no, green thumbs. So if you have a green thumb, you're really good at growing things. And I think some people are really talented. I'm not very good sometimes, but I'm a lot better than my mom was with houseplants. She would kill everything I ever gave her. So you got to take care of your plants. You have to water them, not water them too much, take care of them, make sure they have enough sun. Gardeners can cultivate herb gardens. You can grow herbs, things you can use in your food that you cook at home, which is great. It tastes very fresh. Like parsley and green onions. I'm growing some green onions right now.
Or mint.
Mint is great, yeah. So vegetable plots. My dad had a little vegetable plot in the backyard. We had a lawn in the backyard, but then he had his area for his garden. And I had a strawberry plot. You can have different areas of your yard that have different vegetables or fruits growing. Or maybe you have fruit trees. You had fruit trees, didn't you, Tom?
Yeah, a long time ago, my mother-in-law wanted them cut down. We had that starfruit tree. I'm not a big fan of starfruit, but we had a big starfruit tree. It wasn't growing in the yard, though. It was like growing in the planters or something like that. It's kind of hard to explain, but in any case, these are some alternatives for gardeners. They can have fruit trees, and they will make a household more self-reliant. So yeah, it's pretty cool if you can grow your own food. If there are food shortages, you might still have food there. Planting native wildflowers or perennials is another way to create beautiful home landscapes. So yes, wildflowers can be kind of cute. Maybe not as cute as tulips or roses or whatever, but they're still special in their own way. Perennials are plants that live a really long time.
If you're reliant, it just means you're dependent upon somebody. If you're self-reliant, you're depending on yourself, which is a great thing to be. We all need to be more self-reliant. Don't depend on other people. Make sure you can take care of yourself. That's very important, especially if you're growing into an adult. So yeah, you can plant native wildflowers. Perennials are things that you just plant once and then they keep coming up every year. So it's another way to create beautiful home landscapes. Landscape here is just a way to talk about how beautiful an area looks. If you're a landscaper, you're probably someone who helps make their gardens beautiful, keep them beautiful. But a landscape is just how beautiful to the eye an area of land can be. Right now, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to listen to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back.
Hello everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的是10月28号 Unit 15 Is it time to move on from the culture of lawns? 第2天的课程。我们前一天课程介绍的是 lawns 草坪什么时候变成美化住宅景观的重要元素，也了解到维护草皮要付出什么样的代价。今天就看到美化景观，除了养草坪以外， 还有什么其他经济实惠、环保救地球的做法？好，我们现在一起来看看学习重点。请同学注意第一段第一个句子 There are numerous alternatives to 这个地方。请同学注意 alternative 意思是替代方案，它后面的介系词用 to， 惯用 to， 后面冠带 that 所代替的绝对不是前面的 lawn 哦。为什么呢？它所代替的是 alternatives， 怎么看的？是从动词 are 来做判断。当然，同学也可以从文意来做判断了。再来，请同学看到第二句。第二句呢 ，Some homeowners elect to， 请同学先把 elect to 画起来。elect to 就是他们选择这么做 ，they choose to do something. What do they choose to do？ 他们选择做什么事呢 ？Put the lawnmower away。这里并不是只是单纯说把这个东西推开，而是不去用它。他选择不去用除草机。再来，后面这个句子最后一个动词 flourish， 这个动词是什么意思？这是一个很重要的动词，表示在良好的环境下，人、动物、植物，任何有生命的都能够生长得非常的健康，充满生命力。如果是花草树木，就是茂盛繁茂的意思。另外有个动词是 nourish， N-O-U-R-I-S-H， 和 flourish长得很像吧？大家背单字时可以用联想法一起记。Nourish 就是滋养，提供生长的养分，有足够的养分才能够呢生长得很茂盛。所以 nourish 和 flourish 同学可以一起记。那 nourish 到底什么意思？怎么用呢？ Mothers do everything they can to nourish their babies。妈妈会尽一切心力养育自己的孩子。或者也可以说 To stay healthy, you need nutritious food. To become wise, you need soul-nourishing books. 身体要健康，要吃营养的食物；要有智慧，则需要阅读可以滋养心灵的书籍。再来，请看到第四句，这里呢讲到了还有其他的植物，像洋甘菊还有三叶草，其实 they can also be substituted for grass。好，再来，请同学看到第二段的第一句。Other homeowners may prefer exercising their green thumbs。有一些屋主，他们可能呢比较想要发挥自己的园艺天分。什么是 green thumbs？ 其实就是园艺天分。那这里动词呢，我们可以用 exercise。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, everybody, let's continue with our lesson. Mainly, we're talking about alternatives to having a lawn in the traditional sense with closely cropped grass that looks really nice. Of course, you use a lot of water for that. And, of course, you might use a lot of fertilizers and chemicals and pesticides, which can cause problems. So we talked about some alternatives. You could just let the weeds and wildflowers grow and let them flourish. And you could also consider some ground cover plants like chamomile or clover. They can be substitutes for grass. And they also provide food for pollinators, and they stabilize nitrogen levels in the soil. And, of course, you might also consider doing some gardening in your lawn there. You can have herb gardens, vegetable plots, or fruit trees, and that would make your household more self-reliant for food production. You can eat your own fruit, for example, or vegetables or whatever. Maybe you could plant tomatoes, who knows?
Yeah.
And planting native wildflowers or perennials is another way to create beautiful home landscapes. That's another alternative. These can be arranged in flower beds or other configurations, such as along a garden path. So again, you can have different kinds of plants, and you can put them in flower beds, which is a special area for flowers, or you can think of your own configuration. A configuration is just the way you arrange something in whatever form you decide.
Yeah, it could look like a square shape, a circle, a long, thin, rectangular shape. That's a configuration. You can make those your decisions by yourself. It could be along a garden path. Sounds beautiful. Another enjoyable way to make use of yard space is to have a water feature, such as a pond or fountain, which can be populated with local species of plants and animals for a diverse and lively environment. I don't know many people who are wealthy enough to have their own pond. I did know someone in New York at one time, and they had a man-made pond in their backyard. They had fish that they had stocked in it, and it was fun to be around that, but most people don't have that kind of money. And I'm from a desert area, so to have a pond or even a water fountain is kind of tough with the water situation as it is in Phoenix.
Yeah, I didn't know anybody who had a pond or fountain in my hometown. Although there was a fountain at the local funeral home. We used to go down there and look at the colored water.
Well,
but
nice.
That's another story. But yeah, if you can have a pond or a fountain, you can populate it with local species of plants. Here we've got the verb to populate, which means to move living things into a certain area. Maybe a government wants to populate a desert area. They want to move people in there so more people are living there to grow plants or whatever. So yeah, you could grow some local plants and you could let animals go in there for this lively environment. You could be living at peace with the local ecosystem.
That sounds nice. Now, in the next paragraph, it says in barren environments with fewer natural water sources, that would be like a desert, replacing a lawn with other water-loving plants isn't a rational solution. Yeah. You can't really do that. So if you're in a barren environment, it's very dry. It's tough to grow anything there. And a lot of deserts are very barren. Although some deserts are quite nice. The desert outside of my hometown in Mesa has a beautiful desert. But yeah, we don't get as much water there. So you have fewer natural water sources. So if you're going to replace a lawn in a desert area, you're not going to want to think about a pond or a fountain because those aren't rational solutions. If you're rational, you're thinking logically and clearly. You're not just being silly and imagining something that's impossible. You're being very I think you're using common sense, you could say. You're very rational. You want to have good friendships with rational people who don't all of a sudden do crazy things.
Okay, so what's going on now? We've got this rational solution in such places. A technique called Xeriscaping is becoming popular. I had not heard of this before we prepared for today's lesson. What is Xeriscaping? Well, it aims to moderate or eliminate the need for irrigation, so it's perfect for saving water while still making a gorgeous yard. So, of course, if you have plants or crops, you need to have irrigation. Unless, of course, you get enough rain. In some places, you don't get enough rain, so you have to have irrigation, which is an artificial means of providing water for plants. For most people, of course, that means you're watering your lawns basically with sprinklers or with a hose or whatever. And if you practice xeriscaping, well, you won't really need a lot of irrigation.
We were lucky. I told you I was from a desert, but we had irrigation in my parents' home. So, yeah, if you lived on a certain street, you kind of got lucky because you were close to a canal with water. It cost a lot less to keep a green lawn because we had irrigation. Yeah, but most people don't have access to that or enough water to irrigate or keep their plants and lawns green. So, here's an idea. Xeriscaping employs sturdy. Sturdy just means something that's very strong. It's hard to damage it. It's hard to injure somebody who's sturdy. So they use or employ very strong drought-tolerant plant species. That's what you should look at. You should look at plants and flowers that love the sun if you're in a sunny place or they don't need a lot of water, and pick those and make those part of your landscape.
Exactly. So I'm thinking cactus here or similar plants that don't require a lot of water. And if you have those plants, they can make a gorgeous, beautiful yard. And Xeriscaping employs sturdy, drought-tolerant plants, as you said, and especially we want to use ones that are native to the area. It also groups plants that have similar water needs, such as separating thirsty plants from those that require little water. So you need to keep them separate. Plants that require a lot of water cannot be close to plants that don't need a lot of water because that will create problems.
Oh, big problems. Well, in today's world, we have more options for our yards than just trimmed lawns. If you trim something, you just make it very tidy. It's not messy looking. Sometimes if you go get a haircut, you just say, hey, I'd like a trim, or I'd like you to trim a few inches off. Your hair's not excessively long, but you just want to look less messy, more tidy, more put together. So you get a trim. Well, these are trimmed lawns. They look very elegant because they're very sharp. So creating sustainable, thoughtful, and biodiverse gardens is one way we can contribute to Earth's good health. I think that's a great idea.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our lesson for today. Let's now listen to our Chinese teacher.
好，请同学看到第二段第5句。Another enjoyable way to make use of yard space 这边，请同学特别注意到的就是逗点之后 which 开头的这个关系子句 be populated with。老师想要说明一下这个 be populated with 的用法。其实它所表示的就是有多少人口，或者呢有什么生物居住在这里。Taiwan is an island nation lying on the rim of the Pacific Ocean, populated by nearly 24 million people. 再来，请同学特别注意的是后面2个形容词，一个是 diverse， 所指的就是多样的。那同学对 biodiversity 这个名词应该都相当熟悉，中文叫生物多样性，而 diverse 是形容词，是多样的意思。后面还有一个形容词 lively， 是生气蓬勃的。再来，请同学看到第3段第一个句子 In barren environments， barren 所指的是土壤贫瘠的，等于 infertile I-N-F-E-R-T-I-L-E。 再来，这边提到说在一些比较缺水的地方，其实你还去选择需要很多水的植物，这就不是一个明智的做法了。 It's not a rational solution。 这 rational 其实就是 sensible 的意思， S-E-N-S-I-B-L-E， 并不是明智的做法。再来，请同学看到第2句，这里有一个画底线的单字 Xeriscaping。 Xeriscaping 是什么呢？其实这是1981年科罗拉多州 Denver 这个地方，他们水资源管理部门所推行的。那在这个字其实是2个字的合成，前面的这个 Xeri 其实是希腊文的 Xeris， 表示干燥，那和后面这个 scape 所组成的复合字。Xeriscape 基本上指的就是精心设计以后可以适应干旱条件的庭园景观。好，再来请同学看到第3句 Xeriscaping aims to moderate or eliminate the need for irrigation。 原来所谓的这个 Xeriscaping 主要就是希望能够降低对于灌溉的需求， moderate 那就是降低，或者完全去除掉，那我们动词就用 eliminate。 再来请同学特别注意的第4句，这里提到 drought tolerant 指的就是一些植物的品种，它们是属于比较耐干旱的 drought tolerant， 而后面的 native 所指的呢就是原生的，有一些植物呢它是在这些区域是属于原生的植物。好，以上就是我们对于这篇文章第2天所做的中文讲解，谢谢大家。
That's it, guys. We hope you have, enjoyed listening to some interesting options or alternatives to having a lawn. What do you want to have as you get old enough to buy a home, or maybe you're in a community and you want to share a garden? What are you going to use that land to do? We wish you lots of good luck. There are lots of fun choices out there. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.